All right, good morning. It is 9:10 a.m. On Friday, August 14th, week 2 of week 10. Thank you, ladies. I received your discussions. And I think there might be some confusion on when this class will meet. I know I offered 10 a.m. last week, and we kind of did 10 a.m. last week, but I was reminded by the powers that be that this class is slated for 9 a.m. on Fridays. But I'm flexible. I just wanted to get this recording out there. So if you're looking for like 10 a.m., just watch this recording, and then we'll converse via email to solidify what's our modified or true schedule. And also I'll also be putting today in the announcements laboratory times with a modification. I believe we had a laboratory or something going on Friday the 28th. I have to take that day off for personal reasons, and I'll give alternative dates as well. And again, if you are not comfortable with coming to campus for your laboratory and or midterm and final, please tell me now, email me now so it can be official, so that I can make preparations, because it's like week 2 going into week 3. It'll be week 5 before you know it. And I don't want us to be like at the last minute rushing on how we're supposed to make preparations, because I have to prepare the laboratory. I have to sanitize it, disinfect it, and also I have to inform our security on campus who exactly is coming to campus, and also I have to give you instructions on how you are to mask up and glove up and all that kind of stuff while you are on campus. And I promise, whether it be midterm, final, or the laboratories, I will be moving. I'll be moving you through the process quickly, so that we could have the most minimal exposure as possible. And that's also the reason why we have to inform everybody, because I have to coordinate with nursing and culinary on who is in the building. We're trying to minimize that number as much as possible. Okay. So with that being said, of course, thank you, ladies, for having your discussion. Overall, the discussion was good, and the post received will be full credit for both of you. Now, what's due next week? Task 2, submit your resume based on the stuff that we were talking about, and make sure you go through, and because that's how I am going to grade it, through the checklist in the CDS guide. And the CDS guide is this thing right here in topic 1 that we've been utilizing since day 1. We'll be using that up until the end of business today. And there's a nice little PowerPoint that Ms. Bushrod from Career Services would typically go over, but she is on paid time off today. So I was thinking of asking her to make a what do you call that? A video or something. But the PowerPoint is self-explanatory, and again, the PowerPoint is fodder for your midterm. Okay, and just a little quick preview is next week is a review of your vital signs, and I put in a quiz here. I'm also going to put in, did I put in a sample midterm? Nope, I did not. So let me add that to the mix. I'm doing that with all students now, now that we have solidified midterms and finals. So watch this video, 10 things about talking to people. This is a really nice video. I actually, I grabbed this video from one of your humanities classes, and it's a really nice video on how when you speak to people, there are certain things that you should be having in your mind, other than waiting for your turn to say your piece. Uh, and actually, if this is I am not a fan of a lot of TED Talks, but this one, 10 Ways to Have a Better Conversation, is a really good video. And it's something that definitely will be also fodder for your midterm as well. Okay. And let's finish up the CDS guide, and then we'll wrap. And then from this point on, it's all clinical stuff. So where did we last leave off? We talked to the parts of the cover letter. We talked to the different formats, what a tailored resume is. Now let's talk about the interview itself. Notice, just a side note, remember the parts of your cover letter. But again, once you have your your stock resume and stock cover letter, then remember to tailor it to the person you're talking to. Again, I have to reiterate, don't be like that guy or gal in the bar who uses the same pickup line. It's not going to work. It never works. But if you tailor it to the person you're talking to, you'll have a better outcome. So let's look at the interview index. And the first part is to know, just like what the first part that we kind of talked about last week, is you have to know things about yourself, because isn't that the first question? Almost always it's usually the icebreaker question, like, hey, tell me a little bit about yourself. So have your spiel ready, because if you don't know what your strengths and your weaknesses are, and your honesty, right, and also it shows that you prepared for you prepared for the interview. Many interviews, even now, I find it sad and silly, actually, that even professionals who come, they have multiple degrees, they come in unprepared, and it's obvious they're unprepared. We just had another young lady. She has really good experience, but her interview was horrendous. I asked her just basic things like, hey, do you know, because what do you know about us? Well, I looked up on your website, and that alone already was like, wow, seriously, that's all you got? And when I asked her about little things, like, I goes, uh, tell me about your skill sets, everything was like, there's this awkward pauses. So, excuse me, I had to get a little bit of breakfast. Another thing you have to do is, there's something called Johari's window. You may have remembered this from your psych, your PSY 110 class. And know that there are things that people know that you know. That's called the arena. There are things that you know about yourself, but others don't know. That's the facade. That's the face that you're putting in front of people. Okay, that's your public persona. Now, this thing is called the blind spot. There's things that you don't know about yourself, but people that people see. This is the thing that you have to try to find out about, and it's part of the being honest about yourself, because knowing how you're perceived by others, especially positive and negative, and getting the real deal on how. and talking to family members is not maybe the best idea, because we're talking about how you are perceived in a professional environment. So the best way to do it is talk to your previous supervisors, talk to your colleagues, and buy them some lunch and say, I need an honest opinion on the good, bad, and the ugly about how I work, right? Like um uh like knowing, like, for example, I'll give you one of my negatives. I i have a secret temper. I'm one of those people who stay quiet and I let it boil over, and then I hold grudges. And it's something that I thought I was just being assertive, but over the years I've had colleagues tell me, no, you have a temper problem, right? And it's obvious, and and it goes, and you can be vindictive at times. And so it goes, more than 10 years ago, I had to change the attitude a little bit. I'm still a little bit like that, but I don't let others perceive it as much, right? So these are things that now it opened up my Johari's window, and that was my blind spot. I just thought I was just being, the tough guy, and that was just my personality. But no, it's a problem, and it's something that something that, of course, I had to work on. Now, if you know these things, all right, if you know on who you are, I'm moving ahead of myself here. Okay, then it's something that you could really talk about. Now, when you are interviewing, your skills and accomplishments. Don't just go over your list of skills and accomplishments. Before you interview, look at what they want in the job description itself and match the skills and accomplishments and put those up top, right? Just like your resume, you have to communicate. You have to communicate how. What do you call it? You have to communicate their checklist, because all intents and purposes, the HR manager has a checklist of things they want, and they're seeing if your personality, skills, and accomplishment match these things. And if you put all of those things that match up front, that's the thing that'll remember. Elevator pitch, we kind of talked about a little bit last week. Again, part of your thing, like, tell me about yourself. You can do the elevator pitch within that question. Tell me a little bit about yourself. Okay. Now, back to memorable. I have to reiterate this. Make you memorable, not by doing something bizarre, but matching up to what they want to what you can give them. Remember, the perspective is very different. Now, what I do when I interview is I take the top 3 things that the employer wanted in the job description, and over time I've learned. And again, you should practice your interview, because eventually you're going to interview with me. I forgot to mention that next week. Let's make an appointment for a Zoom, and I will interview you for a medical assisting position that I will post, and that will be and you got to get dressed up and at least on webcam, right? And then I'll interview you and ask you some classic questions. Okay. So the way you make yourself memorable is I take the top 3 things that they want, and I tailor the majority of my responses to their questions, to their checklist, to what they want. And it wins every time. I believe my last, how many am I, out of my last 5 interviews, I had 3 callbacks for a second interview. So I'm batting around, I'm batting around 60%, give or take. And by the way, you may be asking, oh, are you planning to leave? You're always planning to leave. Gone are the days where you're going to be with a company for a million years, even though I've been with Stratford on and off for the last 10 years, you're always looking for the bigger, badder, better thing. And it's good. It's also good to practice and to have your name out there. So if you're not actively looking at your LinkedIn, please do. Please contribute to your LinkedIn. Actually, look at if you're looking for a job, you should be looking at your LinkedIn as much as you look at your Facebook or your Instagram. And I look at my Facebook and Instagram almost instant. Since I'm a business owner, well, I don't do it as much anymore. I before when before all of this happened, I'd be looking at LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, everything related to my business, everything related to my career, and everything geared towards things that will put money in my pocket, not and activities that'll put money in my pocket or to grow me professionally to again put money in my pocket. If you gear your life towards all of that, right? You won't be a millionaire, but the money will come, and stability will come. Just hang in there. So now, same thing I mentioned earlier. That last candidate for this nursing position, myself and Dr. Lexima and Dr. Walsh were interviewing this candidate. She knew nothing about us. So if you don't even have the time to research on who you're talking to, that's that's a big turnoff to employers. Know who your employer is. Know what they want. Know how they contribute to the local economy, local area, and how you could be excited to be a part of that. That was another thing. We had another candidate that she sounded like we were boring her. Dr. Walsh even asked her, goes, are you okay? Are we boring you? And then she's like, no. And he goes, I just had and she made up some excuse, but her overall demeanor and attitude was like, and remember, I make the analogy with this like dating, right? It's you got to show interest, and if you don't show interest, then why are you on the date in the first place? Right? So know about who you're talking to. And again, be simple, be straightforward. Especially in academics, you have people who are using flourishing language. Why? When you use flourishing language and too many words to say the same thing, right? It's called economy of conversation. If you use too many words to say the same thing, and being a professor, I am super guilty of that, right? When you do that in an interview, it just weighs your interviewer down, right? But if you look at here, according to the research that Career Services, which is the one who created this CDS guide, body language accounts for 55%. Okay, and your tone, right? 38%. The actual words that are coming out of your mouth, yeah, but look at this. So, especially if it's on a Zoom meeting, show a smile. Lean into the conversation, maintain eye contact, and have a genuine smile. Like your parents would say, or whoever raised you. Keep your posture up, okay? Don't do anything that would distract, like playing with your hair. Another thing that we practiced when this class was on the ground, we would sit and handshake everybody. But nowadays, because of the COVID, handshake might not be appropriate. Also, handshake to a Muslim person is not appropriate, okay? So if you reach out your hand and the person is of Muslim faith and they don't reach back out to you, what I do is I reach out my hand and then I put my hand up to say hello, and I still have the smile. Okay. And remember, fidgeting, talking with your hands, playing with your hair, anything that would distract your interviewer, is a problem. Also, if you got shaky hands or something like that, it goes, put them on your lap, have them hold a book or a piece of paper, because that could show that you're scared or nervous. And again, practice with someone, or videotape yourself. um, I always talk about the first couple of years that I started teaching. I thought, I'm an MD. I know everything about there is to know about medicine. So teaching would be easy until I was videotaped. When I was videotaped, oh my goodness, I saw all my odd facial expressions. I saw weird hand gestures. There's all these little quirky little things that I didn't notice until I was videotaped. And then I'm like, oh my God, I'm not as good as I thought I was. I also saw the videotape of how my students were reacting and how I wasn't able to read their reactions. That's another thing you're constantly doing in an interview or in a conversation. You're reading them as they're reading you. So this is a big thing. Illegal questions. In human resources, there's certain things that they're not allowed to ask, but I have to reiterate, most hiring managers have little to no HR or human resources training. So they ask things that are not acceptable in the workplace. So here are some examples. So if it goes, someone would ask you, this is unacceptable. Are you a U.S. citizen? Where were you? They usually ask, like, so where'd you from? And I always get this, where are you from originally? When someone says, where are you from? I say, oh, I'm from New York City. And they're like, no, where are you from originally? You could see how racist that is. Or it can be perceived as racist. To me, I'm like, everyone's from someplace else. And of course, if you're a person of color, it's a common question, but you could see how that's unacceptable, right? And the acceptable way to answer it is, yes, I'm authorized. It goes, you don't have to answer if you're a citizen or regarding your citizenship or status. You just say you are authorized to work in the United States. How old are you? You don't ask that, right? They're not supposed to ask how old you are, right? I used to have medical assisting manager. He only wanted young women because it was that was the profile of his office. But you can't ask that. And some of my students came back, and I just say, you're over the age of 18. Are you married? Do you have any children? That has nothing to do with your job. And if you are married, you have kids, when you talk a little bit about yourself, in order to avoid that bias, I don't say anything, right? Uh, if someone knew how many kids I have, they'd be like, "Oh, what the hell?" When do you have time to do anything? And that could put bias into your interviewer. Are you a member of any social, religious, or political associations? No one should be asking you if you're religious or if you're a Republican or Democrat. You only talk about your membership in your professional associations. Yeah, I had an interviewer when I was a physician ask me if I would categorize myself as a leftist or being part of the right, and I said, no, I categorize myself as a professional medical assistant, or a professional medical clinician. Um, my I leave my politics at the door, and that was my answer. How's your health? Do you have any disabilities? Um, they're not allowed to ask you about that. Uh, you state that I do not have any disabilities that would prevent me from performing the duties of this job, or address their concerns. Yeah, I can lift this, I could do this, I can, and my whatever perceived or known disabilities that I have will not conflict with my job. They can't ask you, have you ever been arrested? But we're in healthcare. If you have any felonies, you can't. It's not a good place to be. They can't ask you about personal stats, right? But they can ask you about any capabilities regarding your job. And this as well, they shouldn't ask you about details, military service, right? One time, I actually leave out that stuff in my resume because it has nothing to do my military life, and also it's past the 7 years. My military life has nothing to do with my medical life, and on my any hobbies or anything like that, I don't put in my resume because it has nothing to do with my professional life. But some of the like my health, my women's health group that I belong to, that has something to do with it. My membership in AHEMA and my membership in American Medical Association, my membership in American Medical Assistant Association, those are the things that they know about. Now, and if you do mention military, right, it opens you up because there are some people who love the armed forces and there are some people who simply do not, right? So you don't want to form that bias. And again, read your patient. I had a boss in the early days of Stratford. My first dean at Stratford at Falls Church, he abhorred the military. He thought we were all like killers. And then the guy who replaced him was a 25-year Navy veteran. So, again, read your interviewer. Here's some tips for a successful phone interview, right? Again, quiet place, no interruptions. Lock that door, especially if you had kids. Okay, already twice ruined meetings. My kids ruined meetings because I forgot to lock the door. Make sure you have a little pad and paper, and address people by their name and their title, right? Um, Again, nothing interruptions, and dress the part, okay? And good lighting, and log in early so you'd have a good signal and everything's all good. Anything that would distract your interviewer, okay? Now the STAR approach is the things that I was talking about, actually: situation, task, approach, and results. So if you look at the situation you are and what tasks that they ask of you, your approach is to do what? Tailor all of that, right? And here are some classic questions. And not to have a memorized answer, but I call them canned answers. Like, in a can, you have a general idea how what I believe one of your assignments, well, I'm not sure if it's your current assignment, but your current assignment actually is to submit the resume. But I remember something when I was used to teach this. We used to talk about what was the top 20 questions, and did you prepare answers to the top 20 questions? And remember, every time you answer, you talk about the top 3 things that your employer wants. Like, let's say, for example, your employer has a thing about timeliness and organization, right? Or organizational skills. So tell me about a time you impressed your boss. Well, one time I organized this thing and I got it in ahead of time. You see, right? You can put that in there. Tell me about a time you felt overwhelmed, right? And and if you failed at something, be honest, but talk about it, how it was a learning tool and how you learned how not to do that again, right? And be honest, because oh my God, we had this one math professor. He said, I never make mistakes in a class. Never. And I'm like, never? The second he said that, we knew we weren't going to hire him because he's not being honest. That means he makes a ton of mistakes and he's not learning from them at all. And then guess what? When I was just, I was looking, here's another thing about your resume. And the medical world is a small world. can someone, if they have your resume, can someone easily call the facility? Yeah, because they have to check up on whether you really work there or not. Can they ask like the front desk to say, hey, how was she really like? How many times how many times I got somebody, I got a very good employee because resume didn't look too hot. She was a little bit nervous on her interview, but when I called to check up on her current employee in the last place, I talked to her supervisor and I talked to one of her colleagues and I said, how is she really? And they said, oh my God, she's a sweetheart. She's great. Guess what? We'll hire her. We will hire her because personality goes a long way. All these other things I could train you. Okay. So interview questions, start looking at these. And when you're interviewing, make sure you have your canned answers ready. Okay. And have a family member ask you at random these things and so you can practice it. And like I said, get your phone, you prop it up on a piece of furniture or something. And then, what do you call that? Now, another thing that I don't like is when the interviewee says, when I ask the interviewee, hey, you have any questions for us? They're like, no. Of course you have questions, right? What's a typical day? How's the organization? Like how many other people how long have you been looking for people, right? These are the things we want to know, right? Now, this last part, I have training in this. It's called a behavioral interview. Now, a behavioral interview will ask you concrete examples from actual work experience. Now, let's say, for example, you don't have experience doing surgery, but you are properly trained in surgery. You look for things that match and that tailor. You're going to hear that a lot. Well, you've heard that a lot because it's true. So describe a time when you were considerably beyond what was required, when you went above and beyond, right? Yeah. So have that canned answer ready and be honest and be specific, right? So, and practice that storytelling capability to your interviewer, right? Because I love behavior based because I want to see in hypothetical situations, how are you to deal? I always ask, one of the top 5 behavioral questions is, can you tell me a time that you failed miserably at your job? And that's all I say. And then if you tell me, oh, I don't have a time like that, that means you don't have enough experience. That's how I read it. Or you're lying to me. Right? But especially with dealing with customers and coworkers, I always ask about that. Because the hardest part of the job isn't the job itself, right? Even being a rocket scientist or an astronaut or whatever, that's not the hardest part of the job. The hardest part of the job is dealing with others. So, and this is usually a big thing, like how is your personality? Does it fit with the company and the company's personality? Okay. So look at this behavior based because better companies have behavior based interviewing skill sets. And also it's one of those types of interview where you're going to do the majority of the talking. So if you're not prepared, you don't have your stories down, right? Then, like did you ever watch Pulp Fiction where the guy was like the police officer was undercover and he's constantly, he's constantly telling his story on how he got arrested and he never got arrested. He's a cop, right? That wasn't Pulp Fiction. That was Reservoir Dogs, right? If you ever watched that, great Tarantino film. He's constantly telling the story because if you keep on telling the story, right, then it becomes second nature. And then when you interview, you come off as relaxed. Okay. Not saying to make up the story, but practice it. Virtual mock interview. Now, how are you to be judged on next week's interview? Right. Well, you can make a schedule with me even today. Shoot me an email. Hey, when are you available? Um, First, I'm going to look at on the webcam. How do you look? You making eye contact? You doing fidgeting? You looking around? How was your tone of voice? Was it assertive? We were like assertive, not aggressive. Now, aggressive is what you're grading and you're coming at me. Assertive is you have good posture and you're standing up for yourself. Maturity, professionalism. I always ask the question like, how do you see yourself in 5 years? Oh my goodness. Um, One young lady on that nursing interview I told you about, she answered, "Well, in 5 years, I should have my own business. And in a year or two, I should be, transitioning to something else." So she kind of told us, "Oh, I'll be leaving. I don't want to grow with you guys. I'm just going to be leaving this position, and I'm using you guys." Oh, that totally ticked off Dr. Lexima. Dr. Lexima actually asked her, "So you're saying to me you don't want to stay at this job?" And then she started backtracking. No, 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 no. You could see how that's not good. To have your story and why are you in the field? A lot of my nurse candidates can't tell me why. They always give the same canned answer, like, "Oh, I want to help people." No, tell me a story. Be honest with me. Know a little bit about yourself. What are your 5-year goals and 10-year goals, right? Not just to get this job. What do you want to do? Right? And also mention if there is a potential for growth. Always ask, is there a potential for growth in your company? Because I'd love to. It goes, once I hop on a board, I'd love to stay as long as I can. I can. I'm going to check your education, training, qualifications. Now, relevant experience, right? So, for example, for medical, uh, my military service is not relevant experience. I did not do a single medical thing when I was there. So I only talk about EMS. I talk about when I was a medical assistant. Now, if it's an administrative position, I talk about the year that I was an office manager. But if it's a clinical position, I talk about how I handle my patients and stories and behavioral instances where I actually did clinical things. Knowing your industry, knowing your organization. And another classic question I'm going to ask is, how much, another question that also candidates don't ask is like, how much is the salary? How much, what are your benefits? Those are things that you can ask, right? And have realistic job expectations. You're not going to make 80 grand out of the box, right? So use this is for a medical assisting position. So use the Bureau of Labor Statistics, BLS.gov, to look up typical salaries. Okay, so that's the worksheet that I'll be judging you on, and you could give that to a family member, and you could practice that. What to wear, what not to wear. There's a lot of YouTube on this. Look it up. Now, follow up. Always ask on a time frame where you're going to hear the results of the interview. When can I hear from you again? Is it okay if I give you a call by Friday? I always ask things like that. But typically, it's like a week and a half. Because remember, I want to fill the position as quick as possible. Sorry, I had to get a drink. The longer the position is out, the more it's eating my money as a manager. So I would like to fill the position as soon as possible. And again, remember that little thing, that little chart in the beginning of the CDS guide on how to track. You can use that, or have a nice little Excel spreadsheet. And remember to follow up. And remember, always say thank you. I think I told the story last week on how I got denied the interview for the dean, but when they spoke to me and I said thank you and I followed up, right? What happened? They hired me for another position that was already open. So it's a nice thing to think about. Or there might be another opening within their system, especially if you're interviewing for like a for like a big corporation. Okay, so here is your interview rubric. Go. Did you in your interview discuss a follow-up date? Okay, if yes, of course, call them on the date and send a thank and always send a thank you email within 24 hours. Okay, if they didn't respond, give it about a week, right? Then what? Wait a week or two, and if not, you give them a call. Okay, and again, when you give them a call, say thank you again. All righty. Here's some sample thank you letters. It doesn't have to be that long. Here is a nice little interview checklist. Again, the CDS guide is golden. That's why I put it on here. And this was like the best kept secret. They used to just have these things in a box, but I took it and I scanned it. And the rest is like, here's a networking, okay? And again, I also mentioned professional organizations, be a part of several of them, and also be active in them. Like I told you, my women's group, it got my daughter, who's now a nurse, it got her letters of recommendation. It got my wife a job. It also had my wife. My wife now has virtual Zumba members. She also teaches Zumba on the side because of her links to these other organizations that deal with health. And now that Inova is thinking about having some of their employees started to come back to the hospital, the administrative employees. Um, my wife and her other friend are now getting set up to be official Zumba instructors, not only virtual but on the ground for Inova. And I thought, and their fundraising and their thing. So you got to get out there. I know it's hard when you're working, and then you come home. You're like, man, I got to go to this meeting, but if you see here, if you're networking and you're always looking out and everyone knows who you are and what you do, then yeah. And just as a little side note, be careful what you post because your employers. Another thing that we also do is we also Google what you write down, because some people say the weirdest stuff and the most inappropriate stuff on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Um, like you guys, for those of you who had me in other classes before, right? I'm from a hunting family. I'm from a shooting family, but I challenge anybody. Look at my Facebook. There's not a single thing about guns on there because it's inappropriate. It's an inappropriate venue for that. I only have, you stick to the nice things. I only have like music and kids, right? And memes and jokes that are family friendly, right? And I stick to that because remember we talked about Jahari's window. I have to keep up the facade of being being a good person. It's not only a facade; it's actually a representation of who I am, right? And if I start putting these political things out there and I start commenting on the mask debate or start commenting on Black Lives Matter, then that's a problem, right? And then it begs the question, what does any of this stuff have to do with your job as a clinician. Okay, or just have a separate website. That's another way that you can also do it. Another thing also is that career development. Now, I told you I interviewed several times in the past couple of years, but I didn't get the job. So it forced me to start looking at where my career is and what are my current skill sets. So which forced me to start looking into completing my MBA, right? Because I wanted to break into back into the corporate world, but I kept on people kept on just looking at like, but you got an MD. What do you know about finance? What do you know? And they were right. So in the last 10 years, what did I do? I looked at my career, and there's always room for change. Okay. Now, I think this is one of the last things. What's a portfolio? A portfolio is just a little collection of all your documentation, all your, here you go. It has a snippet of you as a professional. So it should have performance evaluations in it. And go to your any office supply store, and you don't even have to get the fanciest one. You ever see the folders that have the faux leather, and it looks like something you'd bring into a courtroom? That's the thing that I have, and I put all my certifications in there. I have an extra sets and extra copies of my my resume and cover letter. Always bring an extra copy of a resume and cover letter. Always have an electronic version ready as well, because they want to see, and also letters of recommendation. They 9 times out of 10 they won't look at your portfolio, but having it is kind of powerful. Now you can see here there's a picture of a student. In like for culinary, they show them all the thing, photographs and maybe videos and things of all the things that make them marketable, right? And this is a sample culinary portfolio, so it'll have actual photographs and things. But for health science, what's really important? Of course, your resume and cover letter or letter of introduction. Also, letters of introduction are when people in the professional world will kind of back you up. Any certificates, right? Things like stick sheets, your phlebotomy log sheet, right? Letters of recommendation, introductory letters, and I don't know why they have an EKG here, but how about this? Like any EKG certification, any Microsoft Word certifications, things that are relevant and germane to your education. But I always have a couple of extra resumes on hand. Okay. Now, many times they say, oh, you don't have enough experience. So look at your dream jobs and the things that you want to do. Volunteerism, and like I said, my women's group, for example, that I belong to. And I would have never gotten into the medical missions that I had if it wasn't for that women's group, because it introduced me to these other groups that are doing medical missions in Baltimore and the DC area, and then I did stuff for that, and it opens doors, and it gets your name out there. Okay. Other than that, use your externship as an extra job. So when you're there, rack up skill sets. And what I always advise, if you're an externship, have a little diary of all the things that you did, so that in the resume, when you come see me or come see Ms. Bushrod to go develop your resume, it'll be easier to write it instead of trying to remember. Okay. This is where I'll end today's lecture. But read this. This is neat, especially this balance wheel. As medical professionals, the old school way of thinking is like work 7 days a week. What's wrong with you? I used to pride myself in the 6 years that I was a physician. I took a total of 3 days off. So that's what, in 3,000 days, I only took 3 days off. And that there's a good reason why I'm no longer a doctor. I got burned out. It's too much. But there should be, and you have to balance it, because there's also a price to be paid, right? So especially read that part on work-life balance. That's a big thing nowadays. Okay. Remember, just like we look at our patient holistically, we should look at ourselves holistically, right? Do you get enough time we have a very sedentary lifestyle. Do we get enough time? Work out, do something. Doesn't necessarily have to be the gym. Emotional. I am such a proponent now of counseling and having a therapist. I wish I had more time to go see a therapist. A couple of times I was court mandated because of my kids to go see a therapist. It was wonderful. At first, I'm like, oh man, I don't need no shrink, creeping into my head. Right? I was very defensive at first, but then when you open up and remember Johari's window, things that people see that you don't. Have a little time to see your friends, right? Have a little fun, right? Balance again, back to balance, because it's all health. And the one thing you always really have to check is emotional. We have a very emotional laden job. Burnout for new nurses is all nationwide is at 31%, and that's pre-COVID. You can only imagine how it is now, right? So that's the balance wheel, and just the way we look at our patient, we should look at the same thing. All right, I think that's all we got. A curriculum vitae is different than a resume, but yeah, you could read that. Resume is good enough for you guys at this level. When you have multiple degrees and multiple publications and things of that matter, a person like my mother who has 40 some odd years experience, a curriculum vitae is a little bit better, not a little bit, a lot better to read than a resume. All right. And here is some information regarding graduation and things of that matter. And NACELink, I don't think it's the same format now, but you can speak to Miss Alexandra Bushrod at abushrod@stratford.edu. Okay, with that being said, I think we went over everything that we need to go over for week 1 and week 2 of this MED220. And I hope to talk to you guys soon. So what is due for next week, week 3? For next week, and we've just finished topic 2, submit your resume. Okay, try to submit it early so I can get some stuff to you. And discussion 2 is, let's see, what's discussion 2? Again, 200 words. Watch your citations. Apparently, there's a new format in citation, but I got to read upon that. Oh, documented discussion with someone at home. Remember that video, that TED Talk video about the 10 rules? And just have a normal conversation, right? And share it on, like, have it on your cell phone or something like that. Then ask yourself, did you find any strategies that you may need from Ms. Headley's 10 rules? Did you do everything that she said that you should be doing? Or were there some lapse of communication? And any communication with anybody in your family. Okay? Again, 200 words. So those are the two things for this week. It's the discussion 2, right? And it's based on this video, 10 things about talking to people. And your task 2, which is, what do you call that? Your resume. Okay, so get your resume out to me. And for next week, I think next week or the week after, I think we'll do a mock interview. Okay, unless you want to do it now, you feel you're ready, shoot me an email. And where's my contact information? I believe it should be here. Oh, I didn't put my contact in. That's odd. Okay, let me add my contact information. Now, you call my cell phone or text me, it's better. Please say who you are and what class, and of course my email. And again, same with the email. What class in specific are you referring to, so that, you know, we're all on the same page. I have a funny story. Last night, the student and I weren't seeing eye to eye on tutoring. She was talking about one class and I was talking about a totally different class. And the whole entire time we're not meeting in the middle, until she finally said, "Hey, this is for Anatomy and Physiology 1. I'm like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I was talking about Anatomy and Physiology 2. It's such a common mistake, right? They have overlapping chapters and things of that nature. But again, communication's a tricky thing. And that's actually what your resume is. That's actually what your interview is. It's communication. Communicating your skill sets that match up to theirs. Not that, oh, these are the things I'm good at. These are the things, you got to take it a step further. These are the things that I'm good at that you need. You as the employer need. So on that note, thank you very much, ladies. I will see you when I see you. And watch out for this video. It should be up and running maybe within the hour. Okay? All right. This is Dr. Garais signing off.